Hello, my name is Byron Wine. I'm going to talk for a few minutes today about creating posters to present either for the Virginia Association for Behavior Analysis or any other state or local behavior analysis conference, and even national conferences. So posters are relatively straightforward, relatively easy ways to display your data from research projects or applied projects, and what many students typically choose to do when they're first getting started in presenting. But there are a few challenges that when it comes to them. Mostly what I find is the formatting of these things are a little difficult for people when they're first getting going. So what I'm going to do is share a PowerPoint. It is a single slide PowerPoint that we created here, and I'm going to make available to VABA members that you can essentially use if you don't know where to start to fill in and create a poster. So if you take a look at my screen here, you can see it has room for the title of your project, your name, and you can put your credentials next to the name as well. And then it has set sections. Now, depending on the project, you can talk to your advisor or the BCBA that you're working with, and they might give you some feedback on changing the names or taking or adding a few of these sections out. But if you don't know where to start, this is a pretty good blueprint. So the abstract is just like it is in a journal article. It's a few sentences that gives you the main points, main takeaways of the study. The setting, most notably, where did this take place? What are any materials that you used? Anything that somebody needs to know to interpret your study, usually just a few lines there. Again, participants, most people, when they talk about clinical participants, are talking about age, diagnosis, any other salient characteristics. Kind of depends on, if you're doing a presentation on verbal vocal, you may want to talk about their capabilities at the start of the study, that kind of stuff. Independent variable, this is what you did, of course. This is in a few succinct lines. You define what your intervention was. Then there's your dependent variable, which is what you're actually intervening upon. So again, in just a couple of lines, talk about that. I typically have a little bit more space for the dependent variable than I do the independent variable. In most studies, it takes a little bit more time to talk about what the dependent variable is, and more importantly, how you're measuring it. This is the spot that I talk about if you're doing partial interval recording or frequency recording or whatever it is that you're doing. Describe that here. If you had inter-observer agreement or IV integrity, you can talk about it with just a sentence to talk about how you collected it, how much you collected, and what the outcome was. If you didn't do it, you can delete this section. And then there's the discussion. Now, you could also term this the results or the discussion here, where that essentially describes your outcomes, the takeaways, the future research, the limitations, the things that every study's got limitations. You can talk about that. Then you look on the other side, that has the review of the literature. This is not a research article, so you only want a couple lines from the most relevant references, which you'll see you list the references down there at the bottom. And then data collection, your actual procedures that you used to collect the data, and then the design of the study. What design did you do? Some people choose to delete the design section because if they're using relatively simple design, below that, when they have the graph, which it's a results section, but in posters, this is where I just put the graph. It will become fairly obvious what the design is a lot, so you don't need it. So that's just the different sections. And really quickly, I'll talk about how I would present this as a poster presenter. The first thing I do, you have two options. You can either put a poster up and kind of stand by it and offer to answer any questions that anybody has, or the second option is to offer to walk people through your study. Typically, the second one is better. It gives you a little bit more practice than at presenting, which is what we're actually doing. Some people just want to read. They'll say no thanks and just take a look and move on. But most people will take you up on the opportunity to listen to you describe it. Usually I don't read the abstract in cases like that. So the first thing I'll do is talk a little bit about the literature, then the setting, Then I will go into the participants, the data collection, the design, the independent variable, dependent variable, IOA. Then I'll walk them through the graph and then the discussion. So I more or less just go back and forth down the poster there. And again, as you're practicing, if you find you want to switch some of these sections around because your flow works better going in a different order, it's fine. That'll work just fine. So that is the basic way to set it up. And what you will do is, this is in the PowerPoint form, just because it's easy to work with. Once you're ready and it's all done, you can then save it as a PDF. So what you do is you save these as a PDF, and then you got to go get it printed out. So you can go to any print shop and anywhere and have one of these, have a poster actually made. You can do it yourself. It's not impossible to make these, but in my experience, they just don't look very professional unless you just happen to be very good at making these things and you have printing equipment at your house. I probably wouldn't do that. So you can go to FedEx or anywhere, and it's fairly cheap. What you'll need to tell them are a couple things. Is one, what are the dimensions? And everybody, when there's a call for posters, will put out the dimensions, how tall it can be and how wide it can be. Currently, at the time of this taping, ours is 4 feet by 4 feet maximum. It could be a little smaller if you want, but it can't be any bigger than that. And so at Virginia Association for Behavior Analysis, what we do is provide easels. So the kind of poster that you will want to make for us is what's called a mounted poster, because it will sit just up on the easel and it won't roll up, right? Now, one thing to pay attention to, if you've got to look at where you're going to go with the presentation. So for example, if you were going to ABA, the Association for Behavior Analysis International, and you had to fly somewhere to get there, what you would probably want to do is what's called a poster print, which is the kind that will roll up into a tube. And then you basically unroll them and thumbtack them to the board. We don't do that at the smaller conferences. Like I said, we happen to use easels, but the bigger ones will have places for you just to pin into a larger board or tape them onto the wall or something, because they know that you've got to fly to get there. So if you're unsure about that, you can also ask the conference organizer. They'll have all of that information for you. And just so you know, here I work for the Faison Center currently, and this is how we have taken that basic slide design and formatted it so that everybody who goes to a conference and is presenting posters using the same kind of format. You can do the same thing. You can go to the master slide on PowerPoint. You can put logos on it on that basic design that I showed you a little while ago. You can change the color schemes. You can make it look any way that you want, and it'll still have all of the basic components. If you're at the university, you can get your university logo and colors, and you could make that. That's usually fun. If your professor doesn't already have a preferred PowerPoint format or poster format that's ready for you. So this is just a quick introduction. I'll make this available to everybody in case they want to use this, and it's free to use and share. I encourage you to kind of make it your own, make it look however you'd like. And hopefully we see you at the conferences with your own poster.